All right, fellow coders, welcome to this next episode of the Coders Campus podcast. And this one, good one, so stay tuned. We're going to be having a conversation with Tony. This is the 63rd episode, so if you need show notes and everything that we talk about in this episode will be summed up on coderscampus.com/63. But before I get into all that, I want to talk about Tony and why you should listen to this episode and why this is a special one. Tony followed the typical path that a lot of people follow in this field of tech. He did a 4-year bachelor's degree in computer science, did the thing that he was told to do. You know, that's the thing that everyone says, go get a degree, otherwise you'll never be ready, and otherwise you'll never be able to, you'll never, right? You hear all that all the time, which just isn't true. And anyway, so he did all that, and at the end of his whole 4-year journey, he was like, I'm not ready for a job. Right? And it's so frustrating to me, but you'll hear all about my frustrations in this episode, so I won't share them with you now. So that's one aspect of what you're going to hear about in this episode. We're also going to learn about how Tony is a digital nomad. He loves the digital nomad lifestyle, which means he's able to work remotely from anywhere in the world, but still get paid a very good salary while doing it. So we're going to dive into those details, how I also was aspiring to be a digital nomad in my earlier years before I had children, and we'll figure out how he's able to live that lifestyle now today. And we're also going to learn how he fell into a very common trap in his journey. It's a super common trap where people do this one particular thing when they get out and try to search for jobs. One of the number one factors that stops people from being able to get that first job. So if you're someone who either is on the job search and you're having a lot of frustrations and you can't figure out how to get a job, and you're thinking that there's just no way that anyone could ever get a job ever, which is obviously not true, this episode's going to be for you. Or if you are someone who is looking forward and saying, hey, I don't ever want that to be me, listen up. There's probably no more important information that is going to be distributed on this podcast than what we talk about here with Tony, and how he was able to listen to our instructors and listen to our teammates as well as me and change how he was approaching the job search, which ultimately led him to, spoiler alert, getting a job in tech. Imagine that. So all that and more in this next episode. Again, coderscampus.com/63 if you want to get to the show notes. So without further ado, let's hop in and talk to Tony. Talk to us about who you are. Give us a background on what makes Tony Tony. Who are you? What can you do to connect with people who are listening to this?
When I was looking for boot camp, so really just like tertiary education in general, I had been in a university studying computer science, and I was like, this is cool. But like many people say, that I didn't really feel equipped for a lot of the scenarios I found myself in. You know, I had an idea that I wanted to work on that was regarding web development, and I didn't really have the skills. And at the time I was traveling, I was studying at an online university, and I was in like, I don't know, I think I was in like Mexico when I stumbled upon your videos, and I was like, this guy's a pretty good teacher. And I found them to be super helpful. Yeah, so I was basically studying, traveling. I had worked odd jobs, everything from hospitality to I did a job called brand ambassading, which is popular in the US. Taught English online, you name it, I was doing it. So
you were in Mexico, and so yeah. So right now you're in Spain.
Now I'm in Spain. Now I'm living in Spain.
Okay, so you're a well-traveled. So why the traveling? What are you running away from something, or are you just a person who loves to travel? What's the story there?
I had always been kind of fascinated with Latin America. I always wanted to learn Spanish. I was like, all right, it's my 20s, you know, this is a perfect time to do it. And so I basically just embarked on a journey, went all around, met a bunch of different people, saw so many like digital nomads who were most of the time programming and just traveling, which I found to be like a superpower essentially. So since that happened, probably like 5 years ago, I was like, I want to be a part of this group.
So can you explain what a digital nomad is if someone doesn't know what that means?
Yeah, digital nomad is someone who works primarily remote. Some of them could be hybrid, but you essentially can do your job from anywhere, and your employer has no restrictions for you to do so. So you could be in Morocco working for a US company, or you could be, you know, working for a German company and living in the United States. There's no filters, right? And yeah, I mean, I've met so many people, especially here in Europe. It's super popular. And it's, like I said, it's kind of like a superpower to be able to work from wherever you want. And especially if you're making, in some cases, US dollars and living in somewhere where it's way cheaper to live. I mean, this is a life hack that most people don't think about.
Hmm. Really interesting. Yeah, yeah. So I know digital nomadness because I am an entrepreneur, and before I had kids, I was like, I always had my eye on, Thailand or the Philippines or like somewhere warm. I'm not really scared of, bugs or snakes or anything like that. So like that, I didn't mind. I just hate the cold, right? Which is ironic. I'm in Canada.
I
Um,
heard that.
yeah, so I just wanted to get, somewhere anyway. But then I started having kids, and it's like, okay, well, this is definitely not happening for me now. One of the people who works on our team, his name is Marcus. He just left Canada to go to Panama, so he's in Panama right now, which
That's a
is,
good
yeah,
spot.
good spot. Yeah, it's good because it's like sort of the same time zone, right at the equator, right? So it's nice and
Uh-huh.
warm, and that I have to be on calls with this guy on Zoom every single week. I'm on calls with him, and I get to stare at his background, which is like the bloody ocean with like birds flying around and sunshine, and he's complaining that it's too hot, and I'm like, oh god, cry me
He
a
chose
river,
well.
dude.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure that's hard for you to hear.
it's hard. Okay, so digital nomadism and being able to work remotely and being a programmer while working remotely, yeah, is a thing. You can absolutely do that.
Yeah.
So is that sort of what got you into saying, oh, maybe I should? Because no, you were saying you were doing a computer science degree in some way, shape, or form. So I
Right.
guess you'd already had your mind made up that you wanted to do computers in general, or how? Yeah.
Well, when I met those folks, I hadn't started studying anything.
Ah, okay.
And I was
So were
kind of
they the?
figuring out that was a lot of what the traveling was about, was figuring out myself and meeting people from all around the world and just seeing what's out there, you know?
Mhm.
And it became very clear very quickly of like why I wanted to do that because I saw the work-life balance that it gave so many people.
Mhm.
And for me, it was a no-brainer. I was like, I'm the type of person, I think most of us are, like, we can tolerate our work enough if it affords us a really healthy lifestyle. I wouldn't speak for everyone, but yeah, especially if it pays well too. So,
That's a
those
bonus.
were pretty, I was very easily convinced.
Very good. So that's sort of maybe what started this whole seed of like, oh, maybe I should learn how to
For
code.
sure,
Maybe, yeah.
for sure,
And
for
how were
sure.
you with like computers in general before you even embarked on? Were you computer literate? Were you not literate at all? Were you like, yeah? What was your experience like with computers?
I was more of a hardware guy. I'd always played with like car audio and messed around with fixing electronics and things like
Okay.
that. So like not like I was a stranger to the world of electricity, but I was definitely not anywhere prepared for what I was about to embark on,
Yeah.
especially at the pace that it develops at. Like,
Yeah.
forget about it. You got to constantly learn. You got to constantly touch it. So, yeah,
So like,
I didn't know what I was getting into.
would you be able to like prior to any training, could you like install programs on your like would you know how to install stuff and uninstall something and like use the
Yeah,
file explorer or the finder or whatever, you know?
I was a born troubleshooter,
Okay, good. Okay.
but I didn't know how to do a damn thing.
Okay. So cool. And then give me a moment while I cough here. I'm getting over a cold, so I'll have to mute myself and cough every once in a while. So okay, because a lot of people are like, well, I'm not a computer whiz and I'm not a math whiz. I don't do calculus in my sleep, so therefore I can never be a programmer, right? And
Yeah,
it's usually
it's
not the case.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, unless you're like in a highly specialized part of software, like you really don't need too much other than, a good foundation, I feel like. But
Yeah, well, you need some sort of desire, some because it's going to be tough, and we'll get into the toughness of it as we go through the story. So I guess yeah. So let's start going forward in your story. So you started getting an interest in programming. So what led you to you started doing the university path? So is that sort of what you were told to do from your friends there that you met? They're like, oh, you got to be a university grad, or what pointed you in that direction?
that's a good question. I had spoken to somewhat of a mentor who was also coincidentally an IT guru. And he had basically said, like, maybe one day you want to be an executive, don't write it off, getting a college degree, essentially. Because I was never really a fan of the academics side of any sort of learning, but ultimately it was on my not bucket list, but it was a big accomplishment that I wanted to do, so I did it. But in the end, I mean, I perhaps could have just gone straight with a boot camp
Mhm.
and eliminated that whole process, but I don't regret it.
No, no, you want to, yeah. So the advice that I give is, hey, if you're someone who is, in their teens or early 20s and you can afford university, college, whatever, there's nothing inherently bad about it, right? I always say, I had a great experience in university. I was very fortunate that I didn't have to go into debt to do it. I was able to pay for it, and the amount I grew as a person was
Mhm.
amazing, right? The education I received was bad, and what I could do out the other end with that piece of paper, I was not ready for the real world, but it was I don't regret it. Some of the best years of my
Yeah.
life, right?
Yeah.
So if that's sort of you who's listening to this and you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do university. No, you shouldn't immediately write it off. So if you can afford it and you're the right age, I don't see why you wouldn't want to do it because there's an amazing other benefits that you get from it. However, don't think that it's going to be the solution to then getting a job
Not at
because
all.
it's not, right? Just because you have the
Especially a
degree,
bachelor's.
yeah, I mean, there's people with master's degrees who can't get jobs. We have people in our program who have had their master's degrees who are like, I don't know what to do. I
Mhm.
can't get a job, right?
Yeah.
And it's like it's not. There's so much more that goes into the job than having that piece of paper. Sure, it can open up some more opportunities, but if you're lacking in the
Yeah. And
training that
it's
we'll talk, you're not going to get in the door still, right? There's so much more to it than that. So, yeah.
like all things in life, it's silly to think that you're just going to get this piece of paper and it's just going to get you a job. I mean, that's maybe in the past that worked, but that was highly inefficient.
Well,
And obviously,
I'm sort of the past, right? I graduated 2006, which was, oh gosh, I can't even do the math right. That was, oh my God, that was almost 20 years ago. God, I graduated almost 20 years ago. And 20 years
like,
ago, I couldn't get a job. So it's like, for me, even in the past, it didn't work. So yeah, there's a lot more to it. So anyway, I don't want to keep bashing on that, but yeah, if you meet the criteria that I outlined there, I wouldn't discount going to university. It's still a great experience. If you're older, if you're mid 20s, late 20s, that's where it's like, well, spending 4 years of your life
also,
dedicated.
like, if you want to learn the nitty-gritty of things, like, I had to learn how to build a database, like, how it was written, the actual programming behind the database. I'm like, I don't care about that. But some people might, and some people might be inclined to want to be a database, what do they call this? A database analyst or
Yeah, DBA,
DBA?
database administrator. Yeah, but does a
Oh
database
man,
administrator have to know how to write the code to make the database? No, that's not.
probably not. Right?
No, they don't. So it's a great way to learn how to learn, which is good. I mean, hey, there's
Yeah,
there's nothing bad with learning how to learn, but you can also learn how to learn on your own without spending
for
hundreds of
sure.
thousands of dollars or whatever. I don't know how much it costs to, it depends wildly on where you go and everything and what type of program you take, but it can cost a lot of money and
For sure.
oh, anyway. So you did that a little bit of it. You did. Were you in there for like a year or two? Did you all four? Did you get the piece of paper? What was your outcome
I
there?
had transferred some credits from previous moment when I studied, so it was like 2 years.
2 years. Okay. And
Yeah,
so you got the piece of paper saying you
got the paper
got the paper. So that was
in my closet sitting there. I haven't
there
showed
you
it since.
go.
They
Was
didn't
that
even ask me for it at
was
this
that a
job I just
they
got.
didn't exactly they didn't ask you for it. Was it a bachelor's? Was it associates? What was the sort of designation?
Bachelor's.
Bachelor's. Okay, nice. So cool. So you got that piece of paper. And then did you go and try to get a job after? Like what brought you then to do boot camps?
No, I was in my last semester essentially, and I was like, you know what? I'm trying to be like extra prepared.
Okay.
And I also was really enjoying the things I was learning, but like I had not learned to build a full stack application in the university, like at all.
Yeah.
I had learned some like fun things, how to like play around with the operating system, like weird odd and end things, but nothing like that would come together to be something. It's just like here's a wrench, some screws, and piece of paper to draw your plans on, but nothing else.
Yeah.
And then
That's
it's
that's
like,
a good
okay,
that's a
well,
good analogy. Here's what a wrench is. Here's how it could work. Here's what a screw is. Here's how it could work. Here's how whatever. But we're never going to take them all and put them all together, right? It's never.
everything's way more complex than all three of those things. So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. It's and that was exactly my experience too, which is interesting because I went through the university system in Canada and you went through it in the U.S. and it's interesting to see that they're very similar, right? So yeah, it's a bit frustrating that they don't give because I was horrendously underprepared for the real world. So I think it's a good idea that you did a boot camp. Again, you did ours, great, fantastic. But probably
Well,
most any good boot camp would have given you the full stack and putting it all together that you needed to be qualified. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I found also too that the academic side was not it was not nearly as up to speed. as it needed to be with a lot of the innovation and development in the IT field. It was
Sure.
like way behind for obvious reasons in the academic procedures in terms of getting courseware prepared and so on. Like
Yeah.
you can't be up to speed with everything.
Yeah, they just can't go as fast, and plus there's not a whole lot of incentive to go fast and to be cutting edge in. And now you shouldn't necessarily learn cutting edge stuff because when you get on the real world, if you're working for a big company, they're not going to be cutting edge, right? Big companies are also slow, so there is benefit to being behind the curve a little. But universities, yeah, they might be a little bit too far behind. It depends on, and plus the professors and stuff. Again, I don't want to keep
Yeah,
crapping on universities, but I think I had out of the 50 professors I had, there was one who was like great, and then there was like 10
right.
who were like maybe adequate, and then all the rest were just horrendous. I couldn't understand a word they were saying. Their accent was so thick, and like it was just a nightmare. I don't know
Yeah.
if that was a similar experience that you had, but oh, it was, yeah,
Well,
not
thankfully, different mediums like this are emerging because it
that's right.
provides a
Yeah.
lot more opportunity for way more people.
Right, right. So, okay, so let's stop pooping on that. Let's go to, so you joined the boot camp. How did you even find it? I don't even know if I asked you how
Man,
was it.
I had always liked Java and I was using Java in my university and I was just trying to build a full stack app from an idea that I had. That's the whole reason I learned programming too. It's like I knew I always had lots of ideas and I wanted to be able to materialize those ideas. So programming language was perfect for that.
Cool.
So yeah, I was searching on YouTube on how to build a full stack app and your video with React to build a to-do app with
Nice. Okay.
Java. I started messing with that and I was
Oh wait,
basically
to
just
do app.
copying it.
That was a live. I think that was a live one. That was a recording of a live.
Was it?
Might have been.
Could have
Yeah.
been.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could have been. I think there's a few though. I have seen
There are a
different
few. Yeah.
versions.
There's
Yeah.
another one where I built the assignment submission app. That was a series.
No way.
So
You made a video for that.
there's a whole series on that. So if you want to learn how the assignment
Cool.
submission app, which you then use, was built
I
from
didn't
scratch.
realize. Well, I was building on top of it actually
Yeah.
recently, but yeah.
There you go. So there's a
Oh,
whole
great.
origin for that too. Okay, so you found me on YouTube. Nice. Okay.
Yeah, and it was really cool. I mean, you had a good way of making things super clear and concise and not missing because there's so many times you go to do these things with a YouTube video and there's just huge gaps. Like a lot of people that teach don't know what someone needs to know in the right moment. It's really
Right.
hard, obviously, but you did a good job. So you
Well,
convinced
thank you.
me.
Yeah, I tried to back in 2012 when I started this whole business. It was founded on the frustration of instructors or courses or whatever that they would make assumptions. They assume that you know
Yeah,
50,000 things going into the video, right? But they don't tell you that. So at the very least, just tell me, look, I'm going to assume that you already know how to do a lot of this stuff already. And here's the stuff
mm.
that I assume you already know so that we can start here. That way, if I start to watch the video, I could be like, oh, I don't understand that stuff. So maybe I shouldn't do this video yet. Right.
Well,
So,
that's where the boot camp really is so well designed for this type of information because you've got a group that you can constantly troubleshoot with because everyone's information gaps in this world are so unique. And you can do it in real time and get your answers and actually get assistance from peers, in which the peer-to-peer teaching is great. I mean,
mhm,
good model, good model.
I like it. I can't believe that the students, like, we're so lucky that the students we have in the community that we have are so, at least from my perspective and from what I hear, very very accepting and very
Mm,
helpful. There's a lot of collaboration, and it feels like it has a vibe. It has a feeling to
yeah,
it that's real fun. And anytime I
it's
drop
kind
in
of
on one of the
culty,
meetings, say again,
kind of culty.
kind of culty. That's right. When
Clutter's
I
campus cult.
drop into one of these meetings and I just sit back and listen to the conversations, it's like this is really cool. Yeah, it makes me proud. Anyway, the so yeah, the that structure is obviously invaluable when you have that access to people who can be at your same level, but then you have the expert guides, right, as well, to give
For
you
sure.
we have 15 plus years of experience, and here's what I can give to you. Anyway, so there's a good mix, I think, in there of how to deliver. Get the stuff in my brain or in Pete's brain and get it into your brain, right? That's the goal, is how can we download our brains into you guys so that you can then take that and be successful in the real world. Um, so let's talk about, so as you're going through the boot camp, we've talked about the good stuff. I always love to dig into the bad stuff. So what didn't go well in the boot camp, whether that was in the boot camp while you were doing the coursework or while that was after the boot camp, you've graduated and you're on the job search. Like what did
Hmm.
meet your expectations, or what can we improve in the course?
Well, I wouldn't say that I had any surprises. I wouldn't say that I had any like really hard moments. I tried to do as much research regarding boot camps and your boot camp. Like I found some reviews on Reddit and what seemed like real humans, and I analyzed some other boot camps. Also, this one afforded me the Mia share, which was a financing option. So I was like,
Mhm.
that's a no-brainer. The
Cool.
income share agreement, I mean, that is brilliant to have that incentive for the academic side to pull through on their contract.
That's right.
So, yeah, I mean, for me, it was super cool. It was taking all of the theoretical things that I had learned and like putting it into something real and live. So for me, it was not, I wouldn't say a breeze at all. It was definitely challenging, even having all of the information I had learned already. But I was well prepared, and I guess I had known what I was getting into. So I'm sorry, I can't give you any bad news.
Oh, come on. I was like, where's he
I
gonna go
mean,
with this?
I
Yeah.
thought I was gonna like leave and have a job, which didn't happen, but it
Yeah.
happened to
Yeah.
be. I also, a lot depends on the time of year you start applying and like how you start doing it, obviously. But like
Mhm.
I started applying in like November, beginning of November, which is like not exactly the best time, I guess you'd say, like
Yeah.
end of the year.
But hey, that's still, yeah. If if you make the right impression on someone, they'll still at least reach out and say, okay, let's put you on the books for January or something. So you
That's exactly
started.
what happened.
So you graduated from the boot. So the boot camp was a fairly somewhat of a breeze for you, which is great. Which that's what I
Not
want
a
to hear from.
breeze,
Not a breeze. Okay, a little bit of
but like everything that we did, I had essentially seen, the framework dependent stuff like I hadn't worked with,
touch.
but like it was clear and I just need to be shown how to do it and then I could, work with it. The ORM, I had never touched an ORM. I had to build the database myself and interact with it that way. But yeah, it was a
Okay.
good challenge, even for
Okay.
someone who had learned this stuff. And I've heard
Yeah.
this from other people who study computer science in the boot camp, actually, that it's still challenging for those folks.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you're putting it all together, there's going to be new challenges and understanding how the flow goes from, a request that happens on the front end all the way to the back end and then back to the front end again. Once you understand that whole journey of a request front to back and how it takes shape, and like once you really firmly understand that, software development becomes a lot simpler. It
Yeah,
becomes a lot more. You have the
it's true.
idea of coming up with a concept of, I needed software to solve this problem. How would I do it? To then having the solution that you've built yourself. It's a lot easier when you understand the full picture, right? Which is
For
why
sure.
we focus a lot on that full picture in the boot camp. Anyway, um, I want to. So we can, I tried to pull some bad stuff out of you for the boot camp. Fine. Let's move forward. Then you graduated. You came out of the boot camp. So you graduated and started the job search in November. Is that what you said?
No, I graduated in July,
So then why was the
but
job
it
search
was
in November?
so well, I had been kind of like what David Roberts from Crushing Digital referred to as like, what do you call it? Just
Spray and pray.
shoot, yeah, spray and pray.
Yeah. So
I
you were
was just
spray and
like,
praying
well,
from July to November. Is that what you're
I
saying?
was well. Also, I took a month off because I was doing a full-time schooling and full-time boot camp at the same
Right.
time. I had some other things going on, so I was like, look, I'm gonna chill for a little bit. It was summer here in Spain. I lived it up. I was so proud. I was happy.
Nice.
So then I came back with a fresh mentality and I kept building things
Okay.
slash applying.
Cool.
So yeah, I didn't really start properly until it could have been even before November, like maybe October-ish,
Okay. That's
right?
fair.
But
So
yeah, took me a little bit.
okay. So this is I need to get better at this, and we have this in place. Thankfully, we have a program in place that we're going to be putting in and helping to solve this problem of stopping the students from doing spray and pray. Right? You should
Yeah,
know without a shadow of a doubt before you graduate from this program that spray and pray is not
it's
the
so
option.
taunting. Like you're
You
just like,
know,
obviously, I'm just gonna do it.
yeah. So that's something that we're taking seriously, and we're gonna make sure that because that just It
It's
hurts,
like a
right?
like. It's like there's something psychological with, that LinkedIn knows. Like I'm
Yeah.
sure they know that none of these people are going to get a job. They just, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
because we've
guess
been
it
on the
helps
other end, right?
employers.
We've been, I say we. So my wife runs a company as well. She does uh, essentially counseling or social work in a group. She has like an agency type of thing. So she is often hiring other social workers, right? So
Mhm.
she will have to put out job ads to get social workers to apply to her job, and the quality of the applications coming in for 90% of the applications is absolute hot garbage. Like you cannot imagine the like it feels like such a minimum barrier to entry to say, "Hey, give me a nice resume. Like you
Yeah.
need these credentials." So with social work, it's mandated. You have to have credentials from university, right? You just have to do it. Programming, you don't. Social work, you do. You have to have at least a bachelor in social work or a master's in social work. She says, I need senior level people, so I need you to have a master's in social work, right? That's requirement number one. So give me a resume with that. And then give me like, answer this one question. Like, I just want you to answer one question as part of your cover letter, right? 90% of the people she gets people from like, not to, I'll use this as an example. This is an actual situation, but like, there will be a Walmart greeter who will be applying with no degree, no nothing, no education whatsoever, saying, I would like to be a social worker. And it's like, what?
They're spamming it for the rest of us.
They're like, so when you see the count of like the people who've applied to this job, you have to imagine and think like how many of those are not even close to qualified whatsoever. Like
Mm,
it's not like I this is someone who they graduated from a boot camp, but they don't have a university degree in computer science, and that's like no, these are people who like have never even touched a computer, and they're applying. Like that garbage is going to get through because they see the salary, right? They see the hourly rate. Oh, I can get
yeah.
paid $60 an hour entry level to be a coder. Like I'll apply to that, and it's like that's anyway. So spray and pray doesn't work. It's just you're not going to break through that noise, and if you
It
do,
did not.
you are very very lucky. Um, so yeah, you start to take it seriously in whenever it was, maybe November, maybe October, and you
Yeah.
start to follow a more rigorous, proper solution for applying to jobs. So cool. So then what happened? How did that go?
Well, kudos again to the design of the boot camp because that's when I sought out David,
Mm-hmm.
and he basically gave me his idea on what would work for me. And I explained to him my very specific situation, which was, hey, I either want to apply for a remote job in the US or a job here in Spain because I
Mm-hmm.
had access to both markets. And I didn't know how to go about either because I'm not in the US. And in Spain, I'm from the US, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't, well, I speak Spanish, but like
Let's
I
say
didn't
no.
know
It's not
how
no
that
habla
worked.
español, but it's
Well, fortunately that I did, so that helped.
yeah.
But so yeah, he was very helpful and he had experience with this, specifically with people who were living outside of the US trying to get a job for the US.
Mm-hmm.
So he gave me a really cool game plan on how to get this done. And his strategy worked.
Nice.
And that's how I essentially got it. I didn't really go crazy with applying. I
Okay.
didn't have to do many follow-ups either, which that's probably my own fault. I should have been doing that too.
You should
But
have
it
been,
worked.
but it
So
worked. That's good. Yeah. Sometimes you get
I
lucky.
can't
That's nice.
complain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
lot of luck, a lot of luck.
Okay. So you managed to follow his system. It worked. So how did it work? You have a job now. What's yeah.
Yeah, so I'll give a little bit of details,
Sure.
or is it secret knowledge? Should I
No,
hold
no.
it
I
back?
think
So,
yeah. The more
right.
open, the better.
So it was really cool. And it was like, damn, this is wildly simple. It's the little things sometimes. He was like, go on LinkedIn, see the companies that are hiring, or just go on a Google search and say Java in whatever market you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Find the companies that you want to potentially work for. And instead of waiting for them to have an open position, just shoot them your CV and say, I'm recently graduated, or I've been doing this for a while, just graduated boot camp, whatever. And you'll be on their mind when the time does come, and then they don't have to open up a position and filter through all of these greeters from Kohl's or wherever
Sure. Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
I want to work in computer science. And yeah, that's essentially what happened. The company that ended up hiring me, because I did get a job, didn't have an open position.
Interesting.
Um, Actually, they did, but I didn't apply to it. I emailed them directly at their info at Infoverity is the company name dot
Right.
com. That's where I
Cool.
sent my CV. And they contacted me very shortly after, and that was in November.
That was in November, right? But then there
That
was a
was in
long
November.
lag eventually before they finally pulled the trigger, and
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, it
But
was three
that's, I mean, it's
interviews
probably
later.
Christmas time, and that's
Yeah,
always a slow time for. So
totally.
yeah, yeah. So
So yeah.
cool. So you went through the interview process. What was that like? Did they make you do a bunch of leak code questions? Was it a take home assignment? What was their model?
Thankfully not.
I guess
Started the
you don't
first
don't be
was
too specific with the way that they did it. So don't give away their secrets in terms of their interview, but yeah, give the high level of what the process was like.
I mean, I think it was pretty common for a reasonable company.
Okay.
It wasn't, they didn't shoot me with leak code questions before I even talked to a human, which happened quite a lot, which
Yeah.
was pretty demoralizing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we had a first interview just talking about things, job expectations, what I did. That was kind of like the first test.
Hmm.
Second interview was a little more intense, talking about what I had done, what I learned, how I did it, how I implemented it, how I think about implementing certain solutions,
Okay.
given a scenario. And then lastly, it was an interview with the two leads.
Hmm.
Um, and then they gave me a short technical test, which was about 20 minutes.
Okay.
I had some MySQL because this position isn't really full stack development. It's centered around data management.
Sure.
And there was some like Linux commands that I needed to know. There was some what else? Some Java programming, like how to write a quick sort or pivot sort or whatever
Oh, that's yeah,
one of
that's
these,
pretty good.
which I didn't have the timing to do it. And it's funny because I had a practice interview with you and I
Yeah,
did
yeah,
arrays.sort, array.character, what is it?
yeah. Char at.
Array of character. Yeah. And I guess they liked that because they were like, okay. Because I was like, I wouldn't write this whole thing out if it was in real life. And they were like, okay, I guess you have a point.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Don't
because I
don't
didn't have the
ask
time
silly
to do
questions. Yeah, yeah. Nice.
that.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
so
now this company, so you went through that, and then eventually you got the job offer. Awesome. Um, I don't know if it. I was gonna say what were the details of the job offer, but I guess in the Spanish market, who knows what the. Yeah, I don't want to say what was your salary and what, but decent
yeah,
for
I
your
mean,
area.
it's okay. I mean, the Spanish market is not notorious for being like this place you go to work,
Right.
but it affords me a really good quality of life. But the
Good.
important thing is that it's a really cool company that has a good development program, and
Mm-hmm.
the idea is that eventually, who knows
Mm-hmm.
in how long, I would prefer to be there for, solid 2 years or so,
Yep.
that I can work remotely for anywhere. And that's essentially what anyone in this position could then do, right?
Nice. Gotcha. So
Any one of
give
us
you that.
who gets a job doing this stuff, works at it, learns a lot. I mean, these are very often remote roles.
Nice. Excellent. And so this is a remote role, or are you saying it turns into a remote role?
It's hybrid, but in the interviews, they were
Okay.
like, yeah, you can come to the office if you want. There's no expectation. So,
Okay. Yeah. So I always say so. A lot of students or aspiring students, let's call them that, will say, "Well, I want to get a remote job." And it's like, yeah, I get it. I get the appeal of the remote job. Totally. I've been working remote since 2012. So again, from my vantage point, it's easy for me to say this because I've been working from home for 12 years. But I did go into an office every single day of my career for the first whatever 5, 6, 7, 8 years of my career, right? Um, Going into the office and working with other human beings closely with other human beings who are I don't want to say masters at coding, but that are senior level coders and being able to work directly with them, there is something to that helps you out tremendously at the beginning of your career. So
right,
I wouldn't focus too much on. I'm not saying you, Tony. I'm saying you, the listener,
for
or the
sure.
viewer, or whatever, watching this or listening to this. Um, you shouldn't. I don't think the best way to go into it is to seek remote first as your first job. Hybrid is great. I think hybrid is the uh,
Yeah,
perfect middle ground. But even if
exactly.
it's you have to be in the office 5 days a week, and your boss is a pain in the butt, and he's like, I want to see your butt in the seat from 9 to 5. Well, you know what? Pay your dues for a year, right? We all have to
Yeah.
pay some dues, man, because the benefits of being in the office and being able to work with another human being who is great at programming and to leverage their skill set and to learn from them, incredible, right? That's
Yeah.
how I grew in my career so quickly. I had amazing people around me who I work with, and I asked questions, and I made myself look stupid. I got Here's a funny story. When I made my first jump, so I worked my first job as a coder for a while. I mean, I looked stupid in that job because I should have known way more than I did because I was not prepared because I only had university. But anyway, um, I did poorly there. But then I jumped ship and went. That company was starting to do layoffs, and I jumped ship to a different company. And I got hired as an intermediate level person, but I was definitely not an intermediate level programmer at that point. I somehow managed to trick them into thinking I was intermediate, but I was still very much a junior level person. Um, and when I was in a meeting, I remember this clear as day. I was in a meeting and we were talking about requirements, so the requirements for a feature that we were going to build. So the whole room was going back and forth, and everyone was talking and sharing ideas. And they looked at me and they asked me a question. My manager or whatever asked me a question, and I gave him the deer in headlights look, and he was like, "Well, what's going on?" And and I was like, I don't understand what we're talking about. I'm lost. I'm like, and and anyway, so I was honest and upfront, and I eventually got up to speed, and I learned, but it's funny because later in my career, I was having a talk with his name was Joe. I was talking with Joe, and he called back to that moment, and he was like, I remember Trevor, like we hired you as an and like you definitely were not intermediate, and I was like, I know I wasn't intermediate, but what's funny is because I had such amazing mentors, Joe said, but now you know more than I do. Like you're a
Mm,
better coder than I am now, Trevor. So
mm.
I leapfrogged him in terms of his technical abilities um, when he was the senior guy and I was barely the junior. And then so I rose up pretty fast, and that's because I had amazing people. So don't discount the going into the office. Don't think that you have to have remote first.
For sure. For
You can
sure.
have remote once you're year 2, year 3, then you can look for fully remote, and I think that's
Also, I don't think
wow.
that's a realistic expectation
Yeah, no,
to
like
go
maybe in
straight
COVID
into
times,
it.
but yeah,
I think that's going away quickly.
I think that's gone. Yeah, in 2020, 2021, that was like, oh yeah, remote, sure, that's a
Yeah.
easy sell. But now they're transitioning back to in office, so fair enough. Those are the times, but anyway, you can be fully remote eventually once you get some experience under your belt. So what I was going to ask you, Tony, was your job is more focused around data, which is cool. Like you learn about data and you understand what CRUD is and how data is the center. Like that's what all we do is we send data back and forth, right? You receive
Yeah.
data, you massage it, you send it out, and like that's how everything works.
That's
That's how the world.
essentially, yeah. Yeah.
So being in a data focused role makes sense that you'd be qualified for that. Do they have like an actual development team as well within that company, like that focuses just on software development?
Yeah. And
Okay.
I mean, it's a pretty inclusive company. Like they do a lot, but it's all centered around data management,
Okay.
called master data management, which I'm not too keen on the subject. I get the idea, but I went and investigated a lot of the folks on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
from the US branch, the European branch, and yeah, there's dedicated software engineers. So there's
Nice.
definitely some development going on, intense development.
Good. Because that's a great way to pivot, right? If you like my first job was not software development. My first job was
Yeah.
forums analyst, which I've told the story before. I don't want to get into it. I was a forums analyst. I did very little code. I maybe 30 minutes a week I was doing any sort of thing that would be related to
Mm,
coding, but the coding I was doing was if statements. It was if else,
mm.
or if else, if else, if else. That was the extent of the code that I did for 30 minutes out of my 40-hour work week. It was mind numbing. It was terrible. I paid my dues for a year, and then I moved to the software development team, and that's when I started to get into they did Java and so on and so forth. So that's how I had my in. They knew I was a
Yeah, and
developer, yeah.
that's
So
something cool about the boot camp is that you don't have to go into web development after you learn this stuff.
mhm.
You are pretty well versed in how the language is going to work and how you can use it for a bunch of other tasks. Of course, you're going to have to learn on top of that, but yeah, it affords you the ability to pivot in many directions.
Hmm. Yeah, we've had data, data science or data analyst as being the role title that you get hired for. There's a bunch of different roles that people have been hired for that are not, the, full stack web developer. There's obviously a lot of
Yeah.
full stack web developer, but you can definitely qualify for other roles as well. So, um, cool. So, and would that be your goal is to switch it, or would you think you'd be having fun in the data role that you have now?
No, I think I'm gonna like it a lot. I think it was a
Okay.
blessing. I enjoyed web development, but it's not exactly what I had in mind in building.
Okay.
I didn't really have something specific in mind, but I think that is so specific that I would rather have more options. And that's effectively what I landed in.
Hmm.
I think this will just give me another mm, perspective on how to use the language and what to do with it, because
Hmm.
that's a lot of the biggest questions. What do we do with this damn thing?
Yep.
And yeah, so I'm super appreciative.
Good. I'm
I
glad.
think it's
I'm
gonna be
glad it
cool.
was yeah, because and we got a whole bunch of people who are right on the here's a good word for you, on the precipice of
Mm.
cracking the nut and getting their job too. And there's gonna be a flood of people all getting jobs, and I want to touch base with them again and circle back and hear their stories. So it's nice to have someone on who's done the whole thing, who's got the job, who's like, yeah. So, because oftentimes you hear people uh will say, oh, it's impossible, can't be done. You can't, like, no one's hiring, no one's, and it's like, well, yeah, no one's hiring the quick apply people, the spray and pray. No one's going to hire the spray and pray people, right? But you go out with the mindset of, oh, this is how I apply to jobs. And if you don't know how to apply to jobs, and you're lacking in tech skills, it's like, well, yeah, of course your perception is going to be no one's hiring. It's no one's hiring you.
Yeah,
you
and it's
know,
also a perfect example. I just saw a good movie, Poor Things last night. Great. You should check
don't
it
know,
out.
never heard of it.
Super good. It just came out. It won a Golden Globe, I believe.
Oh,
Anyways, one
sweet.
of their points was with all things, until it's done, it seems impossible.
Hmm.
Whether it's discovering something new and how we do science or a new method for development, whatever it may be. And in this case, of course, I too thought it was impossible for a long time. And then it happened. And it's like, oh, wow, that was easy.
Exactly.
Which
Like,
it wasn't.
no, it wasn't. It wasn't.
But
The
it's like,
mind,
ah, why you tripping, Tony?
yeah,
Relax.
the mindset that, like, it's it is demoralizing, right? Because you don't know. And there's a great graphic for this. You see a graphic of a dude who's got a pickaxe or whatever, and he's digging a big long,
Oh, yeah.
winding, and he's digging, and you see
And
all
he
the
stops right before he finishes.
and he stops right before you can see the side view. You see the gold. There's gold or diamonds or whatever, and he's right, and it's like, there's nothing here, and it's like,
Oh.
oh, and that's the vantage point that I have, right? I have that vantage point of, like, if you just follow what we say and just don't give up and keep being the nag who keeps following up, like, you're gonna get a hit. It's gonna happen,
Mhm.
like, because I know what companies want. I know the tech skills they want. I know the types of people that they want. I can see when I talk to people, it's like, well, I would hire if I could. I would hire these people, right? I was just
Yeah.
talking to Caleb, and Caleb's in the doing the he has a bit of a job at the moment. He does like contract work, but he's looking for like a full-time gig, and it's like, I have no doubt like he's gonna find it, right? But of course he's like, well, like, I feel pretty good about it, but, and it's like, I can feel the doubt, and it's like, dude, you're good. It's gonna happen. Like, it's like, give me 4 weeks with this kid, and we're gonna be talking to different, and then he'll be like, oh yeah, looking back, it was pretty easy. It's like, oh. So anyway, I'm glad that you had that now this experience at the other end where you can say,
Yeah, and I would suggest don't read any of the articles. Just like you don't shouldn't go on the news and read the bad stuff. Like
yeah,
don't go looking at tech layoffs and this and that because for one, I think a lot of it is clickbaity and just to generate hysteria. But there's
yeah,
maybe some truth to it. But people are still getting a ton of jobs out there. It's not like there's not movement. So
that's right. The have
don't
you
let
been to
that
one of
get
my
to your head.
calls where have you heard me say that? Is that why you're saying that now, or
Oh no, I haven't.
you haven't heard me say
Uh,
exactly that? Like, so I won't spend too long on this. The news exists now to get eyeballs. They need eyeballs. They need attention, right? They need your attention. They need you to click on their article because they get paid in advertising, right? They sell ad space, right? So they need eyeballs to see those ads so that they can make money, right? That's the incentivized structure. They need you to click. And the only way I shouldn't say the only way they get you to click, but the best way to get you to click, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Mm.
Humans are pre-wired like from birth, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. When we have our I forget what the science was behind this. This is going to be a butchering of the science, so you have to look it up yourself. But like we are 10 times or 17 times more receptive to something that could be perceived as a threat than something that could be perceived as like good. Like I don't know, a cupcake or something. Like the response in a young, like in a toddler or in an infant with fear versus what, like we're so heavily skewed towards to reacting to fear versus whatever you want to call it, pleasure or so that's what they use. That's their tool that's their hammer that they keep hammering and hammering. And of course, what is going to cause more stir in the news than layoffs, layoffs, layoffs? And it's like companies lay off every year. Every year. It is good. It's a good health. It's a healthy thing for a company to lay off, right? No, obviously not laying off 50% of its workforce. Laying off 3% of its workforce, 5%, maybe even 10% of your workforce is good business practice. Because sometimes people hate their job and they don't do very good at their job anymore. And you want to get rid of those people, right? Like you don't want to keep hiring
Also,
someone.
those figures in isolation really mean nothing to anyone because no one's an economist. We just studied a boot camp. So what does
Sure.
that even help me with? Like, why do I even need to know that? It's stupid.
Yeah. So they're selling you on. Now, here's what I do say though. If you have people around you in your circle or your extended circle who have been laid off and there's quite a bit of them, quite a few of them, then it's like, okay, well, then there's some validity to this, right? If you have a bunch of people who've been laid off, who you've seen get laid off, and it's like, okay, there's some truth to this. And when I was speaking about this to I think there was, 20 people on the call or whatever, I was like, is anyone here, like, has anyone been around anyone who's been laid off? And like silence. And it's like, so like now who's gotten jobs?
That's
Has anyone gotten jobs? And it's like, yeah, I got it. Like, okay, so what's going on here? So more people gotten jobs than have been laid off. So anyway, yeah, that's yeah, and because I get these comments all the time, right? Programming is dead. You can't get a job. Everyone's being laid off, and yeah, there's people being laid off. But do you know anyone personally? Anyway, so like I don't know. I know a bunch of developers, right? None of my developer friends have been laid off. Everyone still has a job. My neighbors, I've got a neighbor who works for Google, right? He still has a job. I don't know. I don't see it personally, and I don't see it through my extended network. So maybe it's the news that are benefiting from these things. Maybe. So
I'd not be surprised.
I would not be surprised. So okay, let's. So what I like to do at the end of this is I do two things. One is I ask you, do you have any advice for like the Tony who was thinking about joining a boot camp way back when? Is there anything you wish you knew then what now you know, right? Is there anything any advice that you can give to someone who's starting the journey of like, should I join a boot camp? Yeah, any big aha moments that you had throughout the thing where it's like, oh, I wish I knew this before I started. I don't know or maybe there's none. I don't know. You tell me.
Well, these testimonies, I had only seen one with some fella who was like reconstructing like historic buildings, like doing rehabilitation of buildings. I don't know if you recall
Ethan?
this exactly. I don't know what his name was.
Yeah.
But I had watched some video about he just got a job for like the government of Canada, and I
Yeah,
was like, oh,
Ethan.
okay,
Yeah.
so this is a real thing. This is a
Yeah.
real boot camp, and this was a year ago now.
Sure.
So what you're doing with this is, I mean, way more convincing than what I was looking for. So
Good.
yeah, essentially just to have those testimonies with someone talking like me or Caleb or whoever saying, I did it, I learned. Even if it didn't work in this current exact moment, which in my case it did work, at least I have knowledge and I can vouch and say I can build things now. I could take my ideas and put them onto a computer.
That's right. You can.
So
Your final project. What was yours again? You did a
It was like a review website,
review website. That's
which
right.
it's gotten like 1,000 users like a
What?
month maybe, or maybe even more. Yeah, completely organically, and it's a
Hold
piece
on,
of
hold on. Okay, we don't have much time left. Okay, what do you? Okay, so that's visitors, that's registrations. That what
unique
is
visitor because I
visitor?
used the Cloudflare proxy to it had to do with the DevOps of setting it up on Railway because I haven't put it on a server on AWS or anything,
But you're on
and it
railway,
can
which I mean,
track.
that's yeah.
Yeah, it's good enough, but it's slow. It's slow.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I check on Cloudflare like consistently, and I'm getting a ton of users from or visitors from the US, from Europe, Germany, because it's people seeking Italian citizenship. So all the
Ah,
countries that where a ton of Italian immigrants live essentially have been hitting the website because it's called Italian Citizenship Review because I looked at what are the tag words people are searching, and that one was straight on top. So
okay.
yeah, it worked out. Even though
Holy
it's
cow,
like
that's cool,
not
man.
very well made, but
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
now, I mean, it's got the information. So
Yeah, I mean, 1,000 users a month is nothing to nothing to what's the word to turn your nose up at. That's pretty good
well,
for
I
something
was
that you're
like
literally
in
doing nothing for.
shock. I was
Yeah.
like, are these a bunch of Chinese bots? But no, I went and verified that they were real. So
Do you have Google Analytics installed on there? Like, can you look at the do you know what
no,
Google Analytics is?
Cloudflare has,
They
yeah,
have
I've
their
used Google Analytics, but
okay.
Cloudflare was legit about
Okay,
this.
they
And
have their own
they have some sort of mechanism to make sure it's not like bots. And
okay.
so I was like way more impressed.
And you can see like session durations and can you see the pages they visit
The
and
whole thing, bounce
okay.
rate, I mean, the whole shebang. It was,
Okay. Yeah, we're
yeah,
getting into the marketing side of things, but that's cool, man. 1,000 like
I was impressed.
you can start to do something with that, right? You can start to monetize that essentially. So yeah, that's
No one's registered though, so they're just coming for the information. Which I
yeah,
haven't added any like
yeah.
what are the pop-up bars or
There's
anything
no
like. There's
marketing
no
stuff in there.
proper SEO or marketing or
Yeah, there's no incentive for
anything to
them to
draw them
register.
in. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so
Okay. Yeah. Well, if only you knew someone who knew a thing or two about marketing and business that could help you. Anyway,
hmm.
so that's cool. I love that. So cool. So the advice that you gave is, hey, having watching these things would be super
Yeah,
helpful. Um,
yeah.
oh crap! And I always do this. I say there's two things, and I always forget the second thing after I talk about the first thing. Oh, that's what it was. I like to ask permission first before I just go and do this. If someone is listening to this conversation and they're like, I really connect with Tony, like Tony seems like my spirit animal, whatever. I want to like be able to reach out to him and ask him questions about his experience, or I just have questions for Tony. Could we share your like LinkedIn information? You're allowed to say no.
Yeah,
But like if you want to open up
for
yourself
sure.
to the world to reach
I'm
out,
I'm an evangelistic educator.
there we
I
go.
love to partake in the hypeness of
There you go.
the process.
So if they reached out to you and connected with you on LinkedIn, they can have a conversation. And hey, I mean, you might be having like, I'm sure like Ethan, the guy you talked about, he probably gets, at least a conversation a week, maybe, I don't know, maybe
Oh
more, maybe
yeah,
less. But like, yeah, people are reaching out to him all the time, asking him questions about his experience. And so, yeah,
yeah.
if you're down with that, then I'll share your LinkedIn profile. I always do this for whatever episode number this is. Again, I usually say go to coderscampus.com/ whatever number, and it'll bring you to, and I have not been good at counting which, anyway. So I say go to coderscampus.com, scroll down, there's like a learning center in the footer area, there's like a learning center button. So why not make it really hard to get to, so it's in the footer, click on learning center, and then maybe you'll see a picture of Tony's face, and then you'll see something about Tony went from this to that, or went from you know
Well,
bachelor of computer
if
science to program or whatever data analyst. So we'll look for
if
whatever
it's done well, they'll find me in the guerrilla marketing.
in the guerrilla marketing. Very good. So yeah, that'll be fun. The people can reach out to you, and in the show notes they'll have your LinkedIn, or just look up Tony Edmonds Spain, and
Oh, I'll show up
you'll show up.
for
So there you go.
sure.
Cool. Then
I
yeah,
do
that'd be
have a
nice.
follow-up question before we
Yeah.
end
Okay. There you
this.
go. Do you have any questions for me or anything that you'd like to talk about that we haven't?
Trevor, I have consulted because along this journey, I had sought out as many programmers as I could.
Mhm.
And I met up with quite a few before I started this job. And I was like, what should I do on the first day?
Oh,
Firstly, my friends were like, nothing.
well,
And then some of them were like, remember everyone's names.
yeah.
But my question to you is not for the first day. The first day, obviously, I'm probably going to do nothing all day.
Mm,
But what would you recommend? What would you have told yourself when you were
mm,
first starting? What would you have done?
good question. I like it. Well, um, see, now I'm framing it around if I were to hire someone, what would I want them to do? So
That's a good perspective too. So,
yeah, because it's so oftentimes you're going to have some sort of probably imposter feeling, imposter syndrome, like I don't deserve to be here, whatever. Maybe most people do. If you
oh
don't, great.
yes, I will
Um, but
for
so
sure.
it's normal to feel that way. So don't be hard on yourself for feeling that way. Um, you're gonna. I would assume that you'll have to have a lot of contact with one person specifically. So you're hopefully going to be given one person who's like your main point of
I'm thinking so.
contact for questions and for all things to get ramped up, right? There's going to be the company and hopefully the people working for the company are going to understand that this is a new role. You are new to it. This is an entry level role. You're going to be a little bit of a what which I always say with love. You're going to be like a little baby bumbling around trying to learn how to walk for the first time in this. But they're going to, if they're a good company, they're going to be open to that and they're going to know that you are that way. So don't be afraid to ask questions, right? Don't be afraid to I don't want to say be a squeaky wheel, but don't be afraid to ask questions if you're completely stuck. So try to get set up. Use your brain as much as you can, right? Be as resourceful as you are as a human being. Like you got through, you got a bachelor's degree in computer science. You graduated from a boot camp. You got a job. So clearly you're resourceful. Lean on that in the job. Be that resourceful person in the job to a point. So maybe
Mhm.
apply the same rule that we have in the boot camp for the noobs coming into the boot camp. We say, look, figure it out on your own for the
Yeah.
first X number of hours, whatever that rule, the 2 hour rule or 4 hour rule. Try to spend 2 hours or 4 hours figuring it out yourself. But if after those 2 or 4 hours have gone by and you still are completely stuck and you don't know what's going on, then you reach out and ask for help,
Yeah.
right? Don't spend 2 weeks trying to figure it out on your own because that's too long, right?
Right.
And don't spend 5 minutes and then turn around and ask for help, right? That's too short. So there's a happy medium. Maybe it is a couple hours, right? A couple hours trying to figure it out on your own.
What's a good metric for the workforce as a entry level? What are we talking? 2 hours? I guess it varies on what you're
It,
working
it
on,
will
but like,
always vary. There's no like, oh, this is the
yeah.
rule, right? But I think I think if you spent 2 real solid hours trying to figure something out and you're just stuck on the same thing, and it really is like, and this is assuming that you think you can solve it, right? If it's something that for sure you can't solve and you're sure about it, and it's like, yeah, no, like there's a password I need. I need a password to get. Like, you're not
You're
gonna
gonna
spend
sit
two
there
hours
for 2 hours guessing.
trying to guess the pass, right? So use your common sense there. But if it's something you feel like this should be in my wheelhouse, and maybe maybe you do some googling or whatever, and like yeah, so try to figure it out on your own. 2 to 4 hours, I think, is reasonable. Like if you spend the whole morning on it and you just are not making any progress, I think it's okay to reach out and ask for help. But yeah, don't spend 5 minutes and then reaching out and asking for help, unless the person is sitting next to you and they're like, if they're with you, working with you and doing it with you, then oh yeah, fire as many questions as you possibly because they're there,
Mm.
they're spending that time with you. Don't try to be, don't try to pretend like you're smarter than you are. It's much better to just be like, I don't understand that. Can you explain it to me? I don't. Can you explain it in a different way? Like it's okay to be a little bit, leave your guard down there if that's your person, if that's the person that you're assigned to, right? So yeah, that's the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest thing is I don't want to have someone who's annoying me way too often, who can like, come on, like you should have been able to figure this out yourself, right?
Mhm.
Um, it, yeah, if you spent five, like, yeah, that would annoy me. But if you spent 4 hours on it and it was like, okay, then you come and it's like, yeah, I've been stuck. Here's what I have done, right? You say, I've tried this, I've tried this, I've tried this. Doesn't seem to be
Yeah,
working. Like, can you give me some help here? So if you come at it with, this is what I have tried, I think that will be a
that's
good
a
way
good
to
point.
structure that communication. So don't be afraid to ask for help, and don't try to be a lone wolf because that would be silly as an entry level. You're not expected to be a lone wolf, in my opinion. If they're a good company, they're
You
not
will
going to
die.
expect you. Yeah, they're not going to expect you to do it all on your own. You're not a lone wolf until you're like a senior level. But even then, at a senior level, you
Mm,
know well enough as a senior level that you're going to collaborate with your people.
right.
Like you're going to say like,
You're
okay,
still
here's
in
what
a
I'm thinking.
pack.
You're still going to talk with your. So yeah, at no point should you ever be a lone wolf in this world anyway. So yeah, so that first first week or two is going to be a lot of that, right? You're going to be, and sometimes, you know, it can take you a week or two to get your development environment set up to be in this position where you can even start
Mm,
to do work, right? Before you can
I
even
see.
start to, now, if you're just doing data analytics and you're, you know, just working on a SQL database or something like that, then, you know, there's not as much that goes into it probably in terms of getting your environment set up. Anyway, that's sort of, you know, it can take a while just with corporate slowness to get up and running and start to doing any sort of contributions. So yeah. So yeah, I think come at it with, you know, be yourself, be is it mostly Spanish speaking? Is it mostly going to be Spanish speaking?
I don't know. I mean, I did all the interviews in Spanish, but
Okay.
just recently the HR started communicating with me in English, and the director of the branch here in Europe is
Okay.
from North Carolina. So
Oh,
I know
nice.
he's, I don't know, he might speak Spanish, but I
Okay.
think they work in English. I don't know. I don't know.
We'll
I'm
see.
gonna
We'll
find
find
out
out.
tomorrow.
Yeah. So hopefully that isn't too much of a barrier if they're all speaking Spanish and it's like, oh crap, how do I ask this question in Spanish? So that'll be a unique problem for you to solve. So
Chat
I
GPT.
chat GPT, nice. Yeah. So I think that's sort of my feedback. Is that a decent enough answer? Is that
Yeah. That's good.
yeah?
I like that. Come to them saying, I've tried this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Don't just come with
Don't come and say,
saggy eyes
I've
and be
tried
like,
nothing and I'm all out of ideas.
I
Like,
don't get it.
yeah. So if you come at them with I've tried nothing and I'm all out of ideas, then that's not gonna go well for your career. Yeah. So yeah, just come at it knowing, hopefully, that they know that you're brand new to this, right?
For
So
sure. And
you're
they
gonna
do.
have some,
I'm thankful for that. I'm very
yeah.
thankful for that.
And if you can show them that you want to learn and that you are a fast learner, and that only happens probably by learning a little bit in your spare time. Like again,
Hmm.
I can't speak to the culture in Spain and but in North America, you know, if you're starting something new, you know, learning on your own time is a very beneficial thing for your career growth,
Yeah,
right? That's
for
what I
sure.
did when I was needing to learn. When the company used Spring, they used Java with Spring. I didn't know how to use Spring way back in
Hmm.
2000, whatever it was that I was working at the job. Spring was in its 1.0 version and it was pretty complex. I didn't know how to use it. And so I built my own app from scratch using Spring, forcing myself to use that technology that I was not familiar with. I did it in my spare time at home, and it helped tremendously in my career. Right.
Love it.
So, you know, setting some time aside to learn at home is in your first, you know, if you want to climb the ladder quickly,
Yeah,
that's really powerful way to climb that ladder quickly. So
I'm
yeah,
about it. I love
cool.
it.
Sweet. So thank you, Tony, for blessing us with your time and being honest with us, even though I don't know if you gave any hard hitting criticisms of the program at all. But hey, if
If I
any,
think of one, I'll get back to you.
there you go. You can always come back and say, I thought of something. I hate it when Trevor did
To
this.
be continued.
Yeah, I think when I asked, so there's another student, Bruno, who's he was born in Spain. I think I'd asked him this question way back when. I said, "Was there anything you didn't like?" And Bruno was a bit of a smartass. He said, "Yes, in November of whenever it was that we were doing this, in November I had shaved and I just had a mustache." He said, you joined the calls with a mustache, and I hated that." I said, "Okay, good feedback. Don't grow a mustache." Anyway, yeah, if you think about anything else, yeah, feel free to reach out. But yeah, hopefully we'll touch base again and we'll see how your career has
Oh,
gone.
for
Because I
sure.
always like to stay in touch. It's always a little bittersweet when students get jobs because now you'll probably disappear and I might only speak to you like once every year. So I'd love to touch base. So if anything significant happens in your career, if anything fun happens, and let us, you know, reach out and we can always touch base again. So
Cool.
yes, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. And I look forward to hearing all the students who tell me stories about them talking to Tony and what great advice Tony gave to them for the boot camp. So
I'll be here, folks.
cool,
Hit me
cool.
up.
Sounds good.